Hey, and welcome to the Healthy Lifestyle Show. My name is Bonnie Iris, and I am your host today. And we have a phenomenal story of Mark Goblowsky. He is an Air Force veteran, career martial arts professional, author, podcaster, and entrepreneur. He is on a mission to help others to overcome the obstacles in their life based on his own life experiences. His biggest challenge came as a father 11 years ago when his 3.5-year-old son was a victim of devastating hit-and-run collision with two semi-trucks. Mark believes the capacity of the human spirit is so powerful enough to overcome any challenge in life. He's here to help you discover not just how, but that you too have what it takes. Hey, Mark, thanks for joining us on the Healthy Lifestyle Show today.
Well, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Bonnie.
Yes, of course. I'm incredibly excited to have you on, as myself and the listeners can learn so much from you in areas of hope, adversity, difficulty, and really uncovering some of those like shadows and dark moments. So with that, I would love if you could share some of your healthy lifestyle journey and how you've overcome the many obstacles and challenges that you've been through.
Yeah, you bet. As a kid, I grew up in kind of a challenging environment and wasn't, I never really felt safe or secure in my home, and there was a lot of violence. So, that had a huge impact on me as I was growing up. And a lot of that played out in very negative ways for me. I was smoking cigarettes when I was in 6th grade, and I started drinking and doing drugs in 7th grade. And by 8th grade, I was, becoming sexually active. And so there was all this stuff going on that I probably should not have been involved with. But, it was a way for me to kind of manage the pain of, how I was growing up.
Right.
Yeah. So that played on into, into my life. I never wanted to be a father, and it was a result of how I grew up. I thought that when I, that I should never have a child, and that when I passed on, that like there should be no evidence that I was ever here. So like my mindset was so distorted from the violence and everything else. I was sexually abused as a kid too. That it just kind of fractured my mind.
Yeah.
And then there was all this acting out. I was in a number of, physical altercations as I grew up. And so, I couldn't say I was living a very healthy lifestyle then, but in my gut, I always knew that it was possible to have, that there was a better way, that life could be different in spite of what I was experiencing. And it really came to a manifestation when at the age of 41 or nearly 41, I actually ended up having a child that was not planned. And, the first time I held my son, my whole life changed in that moment, as it does, I believe, for a lot of people. But I was just overwhelmed with joy and love and in this new experience of having somebody that I felt responsible for. And I didn't just feel responsible, but like I wanted to care for him, and I wanted to raise him, and I wanted to be a good dad. Once this happened. So, I think I did a good job those first 3.5 years. And then my life, or our lives, changed dramatically when he was 3 years and 8 months old. And he was riding in the back of his mother's car, and they were in an accident. And it was a hit and run accident with two semi trucks.
Wow.
Yeah. It was epic, just.
Yeah. That's
not
crazy.
Yeah. It changes, there's events that show up in our lives, and they like in that moment, your life is never going to be the same, and it's going in an entirely different direction. And you can't really plan for these, you know, you just don't know that they're coming. So anyhow, my son, he had a massive brain injury. He spent 4 months in the hospital, and initially the doctors had no hope. They wouldn't say it out loud, but I got it out of them a few years later. None of them had a stitch of hope, but you could see it in their eyes that they didn't have any answers. They didn't know. They didn't know anything really, except that this brain injury had shut him down and he was on life support. And finally, you know, on day 4, the brain surgeon came in and said, well, look, if he lives through the first week, he'll probably survive, but I can't tell you anything else. And then he made it through the first week, and a rehab doctor came in to consult, and eventually Josh was transferred to another hospital after they put a gastrointestinal button in his belly so that they could get food and water in him. And there he went to therapy. Let's see, he had like 7 therapy appointments a day, Monday through Friday. And you know, he's like 3 years and 8 months old, 3 years and 9 months old, and in a coma. Yeah. And it's the most fascinating thing. I mean, I hope nobody listening to this or nobody in the world ever has to go through it. But it was just fascinating to see somebody, the therapist, trying to work with this little boy while he was still in a comatose state, and try to conduct speech rehabilitation, occupational therapy, physical therapy. They even had recreation therapy where they're just trying to stimulate a person's brain. And the funny thing was, he was in a rehab hospital that did not take kids.
Wow.
Yeah, and that came about after the rehab doctor consulted on him. He went back to the head nurse, and again, I found this out later, but he tells the head nurse, hey, we're taking in a 3-year-old. And she's like, well, Dr. Franco, whatever you say, we'll do it. He says, you know, all the films, all the diagnostics, my examination, everything says that there's no hope here. But for some reason, my gut's telling me I got to try.
Yeah.
And so they took him in, and, you know, he spent 3 months in that hospital, and eventually we left. And when we left the hospital, it was 12. We were down to 12 appointments a week for therapy. So he would go to 3 sessions, 4 days out of the week. Eventually that went back down, you know, over time. But I think at this point he's been over 2,000 appointments in his young life. He's just 15. So he's very familiar with the medical community. So yeah, it was an epic thing. And, you know, I was able to forge on and push through this and help him. I mean, the best that I could, just by following doctors and therapist orders and working with him. But I got kind of tuckered out after a while, and I realized, you know, I can't fail here. Like, this is too important for me to get burned out or get depressed and then just, you know, check out mentally or emotionally or even physically. You know, so I had to find some resolve there. And I remembered a saying that I'd heard years earlier. It was, always remember in the dark what you know to be true in the light. And I kind of hung on to that for a while because, you know, I knew he was badly injured, but that was a fact. It was true. You know, he was in a coma. He couldn't walk or talk or eat. But the truth was, in my gut, I believed that things would get better. I didn't know if they would ever be perfect, but I thought they would get better. And so I just tried to remember throughout the process, one, that I didn't want to fail him. And 2, I needed to maintain, you know, my mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health to be able to, you know, walk alongside him and help him get to, you know, whatever was possible, because nobody knew, you know, where this would end.
Right.
It was a heck of a road.
I can only imagine. Wow. So like going through that, how did you shift your mind state, like to shift your paradigm, I guess, in a way, um, when like a lot of those negative thoughts come in?
I tried to, for me, if you know why you're doing something, like deep down inside that why, it can help you to persevere through almost anything. If the why is big enough, if your reason is big enough. And the reason for me that I kept coming back to is I felt it was like a sacred responsibility I had to him. Like, this is my kid. He's here because of me. And it is my responsibility to just show up and keep showing up. Now, that being said, me trying to hang on to that thought of always remember in the dark what you know to be true in the light, it's an up and down process. And it's challenging when you're going through some difficult set of circumstances. It doesn't have to be an epic, accident like this. I mean, when a boyfriend or girlfriend, when people break up, I mean, that's epic for a person in their life at that time. If you can't make the rent at the end of the month, it's a big deal. It doesn't have to be one of these life-shifting events.
Mm-hmm.
So to keep coming back to what's really, really important to you, and then to understand that thoughts, they come and go. They're like waves on the top of the ocean. But what's really moving the ocean is the currents and the tides underneath. And so if we can tap into that part of us that has our human spirit, that part of us that has unlimited potential and quite often really profound levels of energy and endurance and perseverance, then, we can keep moving forward. But if I'm paying attention to all the thoughts, like the waves on top of the ocean, they become kind of overwhelming because I think that's the truth. I think that's reality. And, I can't explain where all my thoughts come from. Can you?
No.
Like, have you ever had a crazy thought and you're like, where did that come from?
Yeah. And then it's like not even true or anything like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They're thoughts that are so arbitrary that you can't comprehend how the heck it got in your brain or in your mind.
So it's like creating that space of non-attachment to some of those thoughts in a way too. Like you are not your thoughts in a way, or?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. But, there were moments where I slipped into dark places where I was feeling, despondent or depressed or down. And I think that happens. I mean, I don't care what kind of mindset a person has. Doubt does creep in, but to come back to the truth and like all these thoughts, I don't have to pay attention to them. I could choose to think about something else. I'll give you a real quick example. A very good friend and student of mine, been a student of mine for 9 years, and both of her sons had been students as well for 9 years. And about 3 months ago, her younger son, who was 13 at the time, took his own life. And so that is, it just turns your life upside down, inside out. And there's no making sense of it. And nobody saw it coming. And the other day she comes into the school and she says, I asked her how she was doing. And she says, well, I was driving down the street and, there was just enough time from where I left to getting here that my mind started to drift. And I started to think about the most horrible moments of this whole thing. And then she said, and I realized it was making me sad. And so I decided I'm just going to stop thinking about that and I'm going to choose to think about something else. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to work out. I'm going to train, and I'm going to make this day the best that it possibly can be.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she doesn't ignore her grief, and she's processing all that, but that's a profound statement. And when you're in the thick of it, it's hard to think to yourself, I don't have to think about this.
Yeah. Choosing to take the lead in your emotions, right? And choosing how you feel. But like you said, when it's all so fresh and in the moment, it's oftentimes you kind of get pulled down into the ocean, I guess, as you would say, with the water and whatever. But
Right.
yeah, I was actually just reading a book by Paulo Coelho, The Pilgrimage. I don't know, have you read that one?
Yeah, he's great.
One of the techniques in the book is like, if negative thoughts come up, kind of dig your index finger into your cuticle of your thumb and just kind of and I don't know, it's just a technique, and then eventually it will kind of slow down your negative thinking in a way. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's all kinds of techniques that a person can do. But in the thick of it, it's really hard. Yeah. And there have been massive ships that have been capsized and destroyed by the waves that are on top of the ocean. And you're so right. If we allow our thoughts to carry us away, it could be maybe not a destruction, but it gets us so far off track that now we start to lose hope. And one of the things that I discovered in going through this journey is when a person loses hope, when hope disappears, so does action.
Right.
So as soon as a person loses hope, and it doesn't matter if it's in a business or, your fitness routine or in a relationship, like when you lose hope, you're looking for the exit.
Right.
And so you just check out or you physically leave or whatever. And so again, coming back and trying to manage those thoughts and trying to remember that this too shall pass. Like, I'm going through this. I grew up on Lake Erie, and there were these epic storms that would come in off the lake, and I was just a couple blocks from it. And in the midst of the wind, shaking and rattling in the windows, and it's dark, and rain or snow or whatever whipping around, the funny thing is that on the other side of the clouds, it's perfectly peaceful.
Yeah.
And when those clouds move through, we're going to be able to get back to that. But in the moment, it's like in the moment to be able to remember, this is going to pass. This storm is moving through. I am going to come out of this tunnel. It's a challenge.
Having the positive vision and kind of looking forward. Whereas if you do lose hope or lose faith, you don't have a clear vision of, and then negative thoughts will manifest more rapidly in a way, I guess.
Yeah. And you could be overwhelmed by them, just like a wave turning over your boat,
Yeah. Wow. So what does adversity mean to you?
Well, adversity to me, there's like two kinds of adversities we face in our life. And I alluded to it earlier, there's the adversity that we plan for. So if I go to school to become an architect, I learn how to solve problems that an architect needs to solve. And so I'm trained and kind of prepared for that. Or if somebody's becoming a Navy SEAL, they're trained for, to see adversity and challenges and navigate through them. The big challenge is when an adversity shows up that you are not ready, you've not been trained for. So it could be cancer, say, or your business crashes, or there's an injury like a car accident and everything changes. And those types of adversities are the ones that, even though maybe we really can handle it, actually, I know you can handle it, because I don't believe anything comes into our life that we cannot handle. And it may seem like an outrageous statement for somebody who's going through a challenge. But I really believe that anybody who's going through whatever they are in their life, that they have the capacity in them to get through that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the adversities that you're kind of trained for and kind of expect. If you have a kid, you kind of expect for them to fall down and you expect them to get sick. You understand that those things are going to happen, but you don't expect for them to be in a car accident or end up with leukemia or something. So again, it's presence and awareness and perseverance, because you got to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Otherwise, you do get trapped and you're stuck. And then that, like you said, all that negative, it just starts piling up on you and it starts like burying you. And you can't afford to do that because there's so much more to live for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so much more to live for. So, yeah, how do you think that these adversities and challenges people are able to turn them into a positive in a way? That through the deepest despair comes the greatest light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, it takes perspective. And, you mentioned faith earlier. I think there's a certain amount of faith in God or the universe that things can work out. And I don't mean work out necessarily like perfectly, because if things would have worked out the way I wanted to, my son would be playing football in high school right now and not be in a special education program and reading at a first grade level when he's 15.
Yeah.
But to believe that the best possible outcome can happen, that there actually is an opportunity. And when you can latch onto that, you could keep marching forward. It's a bit of a challenge, but again, it's to kind of pin that in front of you and make it maybe your marching orders, like this is what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to will yourself forward. But again, if you go back to that why, I never wanted my son to feel like he was alone in this world, because I felt that. Like I felt utterly and totally alone when I was molested as a 6-year-old, because nobody came to my defense. This thing, everybody in town ended up knowing about it. It was a small town. Everybody knew about it. The kid who did it to me just went and told everybody. But nobody, not my parents, not the police, not the principal, not the teacher, nobody. They all knew. Nobody came to my, to allow me to feel like somebody's got my back. And so I couldn't let my kid have that experience, because I knew how painful it was. So that allowed me to persevere. Maybe it was love. Maybe it's trying to help, him avoid pain or me avoid feeling like a failure. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is. I like to think it's love. I'm crazy about the kid. He's so amazing, but yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And it makes sense. Like your will can really take over and achieve anything. And it's coming through the adversity in a way for you. Now you've started the Strength Through Struggle podcast, and and do you also have a book that you've been working on as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Next month, I don't know when this will go up, but I'm going out of state to give a talk as well. So I started doing some speaking. But yeah, I've got a podcast up and it's called Strength Through the Struggle. And it's all about I interview people who have gone through, challenges in their life. Now, some of them are, as I don't want to say simple, but, a broken home, grew up without a dad, and then how he navigated it and how he used that pain to create a movement of men kind of bonding together to help each other to become better fathers, better husbands, better men. Interviewed a guy who, was in and out of prison. And when he finally, for 15 years, he was in and out of prison. When he finally figured out that he was depressed, he got some medicine and it changed his outlook on the world. He ended up getting out of prison, going to work for his father's bakery as a laborer.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually started building or designing his own breads from organic grains and seeds.
Wow.
And then eventually his recipes consumed the entire production line of their bakery. They ended up hiring 300 people, 100 of which were ex-cons. And 10 years later, Dave's Killer Bread was sold to a conglomerate for $275 million.
Wow. That's beautiful.
And one of the things I try to help people with is to not waste their pain. Dave found a way to not waste his pain, to kind of put his energy and his experiences to work for him. And Dave's Killer Bread, even though he sold it, still employs ex-convicts.
Yeah.
And my friend Ryan Mickler, he's helping thousands and thousands of men be better husbands, fathers, and men. And it's because they didn't waste their pain. They didn't look at it and go, oh crap, I wish that never would have happened. Although I'm sure they said it, because I've said that.
Yeah.
But they weren't going to let it go to waste. And so that's the Strength of the Struggle podcast, is just amazing stories of everyday people and professional athletes and just anybody who's had to get through a challenge, and they tell us how to do it, what they learned.
Yeah. And in a way, flipping it to something where they can help others through the same sort of adversity that they've came through, in a way.
Yep. That's exactly right. And now they're not wasting their pain. They're sharing it, and everybody's learning and benefiting from it. Like if what I went through as a kid just became the source of pain and me trying to sedate it with drugs or alcohol or whatever, then it's just this horribly sad story.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe that's where we're meant to live. And I believe we do have the ability to choose. And sometimes not making a choice is still making a choice. And so if I don't choose to get out of my rut, I'm kind of making a choice to stay there.
Yeah. I mean, it might be, I don't even know if it's a comfortable rut, but it's just like people
doesn't have to be.
No.
It's just familiar.
Yeah.
It's just familiar.
So what is the primary message of your book that you are trying to convey?
Well, one thing is that my hope is that people will remember to maintain hope under all circumstances. And something as powerful as when you lose somebody, to death, it might not make sense to say, to maintain hope, but the hope isn't for what was, it's for what can be. Mm-hmm. And it's, and there is pain there when you lose somebody under any circumstances, but it's about the possibility of what could be. You got to grieve your loss, but then eventually you can let it go, and there is a brighter day ahead for you. There is possibility. There is hope. There is love. That's kind of the big message.
Mm-hmm. And when you can, maintain your hope and see that there is a brighter day, then you can push forward and find those golden days.
Yeah. And even if you don't see the positive right now, it's having a hope that has some teeth to it. It's not wishful thinking hope. That is not what I mean. As a matter of fact, if you'd like, I can provide some resources for your listeners. And I took the word hope and broke it down into an acronym with 4 steps that literally keeps me going anytime now that I get a little sideways in my thinking. I just reset on this, and it literally takes me out of the rut, and I'm back on track, and I'll share that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, because so often when people get in a rut, it's hard to get out of a rut, and people lose hope and kind of get washed away. I've seen it before.
Yeah. We all do. It's happening all around us. but yeah, if we can maintain hope, then we can maintain action.
Yeah. So on our podcast, we always end with like a healthy lifestyle tip or trick. Is there anything that you could share with our podcast listeners?
Sure, you bet. So this is kind of part of a daily routine for me, is I meditate and I do something called Qigong.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's they're not dissimilar. I mean, there's huge crossovers for both of them, but I make sure that in order for me to maintain my focus, maintain my energy, create space in my mind so that I don't get swept up by my emotions, that I meditate every day. And then I create power and energy in my body and my nervous system by doing Qigong. So, my suggestion is those of your listeners who know how to meditate, but maybe you're not, start it up again, because you will fix a multitude of evils with that one. And if they have a chance to learn some Qigong, it's a very gentle exercise, but wow, it creates a lot of power and energy in your body and helps you kind of maintain your center through the challenges that come up every day.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely try to maintain a daily practice myself of meditation. I've tried Qigong once or twice, but I definitely like the flow of the energy that you can feel, and being so present with it.
Yeah, there's almost unlimited possibility for all of us to improve our lives, to grow, to learn, and actually to be happier. You're not going to be happy 100% of the time. I'd be a liar if I said that, but there's great possibility for a bright future for us all.
So with the meditation, would you, like, for somebody that's just starting out, would you suggest like a certain amount of time or any resources?
Yeah, sure. So my suggestion is to meditate for 1 minute first. But if you think about it, meditation can mean, in the literal sense, it means to dwell on.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us are meditating all day long. The problem is we're meditating on the wrong things. We're dwelling on the things that get us wound up instead of keeping us calm. But you can do just gentle breathing. When I started, it was just eyes closed, sitting up straight. You don't have to get into a full lotus or half lotus with your legs crossed. You can sit in a chair, but you want to make sure that your spine is erect and upright. You can feel as if there's a string at the top of your head that's helping you to elongate your neck and create a little space in your spine. And then with your arms, on the arms of the chair or on your lap, just close your eyes and breathe, but allow it to become a rhythmic breath of maybe a count of 3 in and then 3 out. So 1, 2, 3, while I'm inhaling, and then the same count on the way out. And let your mind move with your breath. And so as your breath comes in through your nose and goes down into your lungs, go with it. And when you're exhaling, bring your mind with it. What that's going to do is allow you to not be thinking of anything else if you just are following your breath and just experiencing that. And from there, that's really the foundation. Because what's happening with our minds most of the day, there's literally tens of thousands of thoughts just racing through there. But if I can maintain my focus on one thing, just following my breath or leading my breath, it doesn't matter which way you frame it up, you'll get the same result. It's like doing Tai Chi. If you're doing Tai Chi and you just watch the tip of your finger, now my mind is in one spot. I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm just present. I'm here in the moment, and everything else is kind of, dripping off of me or melting away. And it can bring great peace. Yeah.
Definitely. I've experienced it myself, and just take a few steps or breaths at a time, right?
Yeah,
That's
all
the
you need.
important part. and not
It'll
having
reset.
expectations of what meditation is supposed to be like, because it's different for everyone.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be a, metaphysical or a spiritual. It's really a physical. It starts with a physical thing, and you can go in different directions from there, but it's really a physical thing in the beginning. And if you can sit for 1 minute, then you can go for 2. If you can do it, you could do 4 or 5 minute sessions a day, or you can do 1 20-minute or 2 10-minutes. It doesn't matter. It's what works for you.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And try to keep a daily practice, so
that's important.
Becomes more present in your day.
But if you get off track, don't be beating yourself up.
Right.
Just do it, as soon as you remember. Take 5 minutes before you go to bed, or 3 minutes. It doesn't matter. Just start something and let it be a daily practice. You've brought up a great point.
That's good. I love that. I love that tip. That's so great. I'm actually going to go to Vipassana meditation retreat in a week or so. So
nice.
Yeah. Lots of meditation there.
Yeah. Is it like a week long or several days? Or?
Yeah. 10 days.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So
you'll be disconnected from the world almost entirely.
Yeah. There's a good saying: if I do not go within, I go without.
Yeah, there you go.
So, yeah.
Well, that'll be rejuvenating.
Yeah. Yeah, I was hoping you could maybe share your HOPE acronym with us as well.
Oh, sure. I can do that. Absolutely. So the H stands for here. It's really just short for here and now. So what I realized is when I'm getting off track and when I start to lose hope, I'm either dredging up the past, feeling guilty or angry, or I'm worrying about the future and I'm projecting out in time somewhere things that I can't possibly know. Like all of our worries, we don't know if they're ever going to come to fruition. I think it was Mark Twain that said, I've feared many, many things in my life, 90% of which never came true.
Yeah.
So when we're not in the present moment, if we're not living here and now, then we're going to be living with regret or anger, or we're going to be living with worry or frustration and anxiety. So step one is to just bring yourself back to the present moment. The O stands for opportunities. And so those opportunities can take any shape or form. So, in my case, the opportunity that was there for me was, how do I maximize my child's recovery here? So that was huge for me. Now, an opportunity could be anything. Maybe it's exercise. Maybe it's deepening a relationship. Maybe it's taking up meditation now that I have an extra little bit of time because I had to change jobs or whatever. I get a little space in my life. But to look for opportunities to help myself stay present, stay grounded, stay rooted, and also opportunities that are going to present the most positive outcome possible. And you can't attach yourself to only the one that you want. Because there might be a bigger plan in place that might be taking you somewhere else. And because you're digging your heels in on X, you can't ever get to Y.
Yeah.
So, and then the P stands for perseverance. You've got to put some legs to whatever it is that you're doing. And almost nothing in life is just easy. Right. Even, when you're in a new relationship, oh my gosh, it's all you think about and you want to spend all your time together. But then, after a while, it's not that way anymore. At least not for most people that I know of. It changes, and that's okay. But you need to persevere through the challenges. You need to persevere through hard work. You need to persevere through boredom. You need to persevere through long-term projects that have multiple steps. And when I say that, I'm talking like it could be your kids or a business. It doesn't matter. It's long-term.
That's important. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the last thing, E, is enthusiasm. And I'm going to give you an example for this one, because enthusiasm becomes a multiplier or an amplifier of everything else that you've done. And when I can hinge or pack enthusiasm into perseverance and opportunities and being here and now, all of those things become amplified. So years ago, I did a fundraiser for St. Jude Children's Hospital. And it was at my martial arts school. We did a kickathon so people would get pledges. And the first year we did it, we raised $8,800 or something.
Wow. Nice.
Okay. And this is back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And then the second year, we raised almost 10,000. It was 9,000 and the upper limits of that. The third year, we raised over 10,000. So in the 3 years, we raised over $30,000, which 10,000 a year average. After the third year, they called and asked if we'd do another one. And I said, sure. And they're like, oh, Mark, we so appreciate what you've done. You don't know what this means to us. And I was like, oh, well, how much does the average kickathon get you? And she says, oh, $278. So the difference, like in 3 years, the average school would generate 1,000. We generated 30,000. But it's because I didn't put any limits on it. And I poured myself into it, and I helped to create energy and enthusiasm with my students. And I think the same thing happened with my son. I mean, I was enthusiastic for him to get better. It didn't work out perfectly, but we maximized it and took it way beyond what any doctor ever thought was even remotely possible. So be here and now. That's the H. O, look for opportunities. P, persevere. E, amplify everything with, you got it, with enthusiasm.
It makes so much sense, because especially when you have enthusiasm, it's like your energy, and people can feel your energy. And even if your mind is thinking negative, if you change the energy within you to feel more positive, it will change your thoughts also in a way.
So have you ever, like been a little bit down or something, and then a friend or a loved one, they come along, and because their energy is up and positive, it kind of pulled you out of your doldrums?
Yeah, most definitely. Right.
It happens all the time. I mean, you can go to a concert. I mean, you could be, moping around, but if the right song comes on, everything changes because you changed your state. You started to feel better. You were amplifying your life. So pour enthusiasm into your healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. And it'll all feed into the hope.
There you go. There you go.
Wow. Thank you so much for your time today, Mark, and sharing your
pleasure.
Story. It's been truly incredible hearing what you've done and your passion behind this as well.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity, of giving me this opportunity to share my story and this concept of hope.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So we'll be waiting for your book to be released whenever that is. Do you have a date or? Well,
it's going to happen. I think we're in September now. It'll be out in the first quarter of 2018. We still got to do typesetting, and I've got one more rewrite. So
great.
We'll let you know. Maybe you can put it on your show notes page or something.
I most definitely will. Awesome. Thanks again, Mark.
My pleasure.
Truly an incredible story, Mark. Thanks for sharing. And for everyone else listening, always remember, in the dark, which you know to be true in the light. And for our healthy lifestyle challenge of the week, start a daily meditation practice. And you don't have to go crazy. Just begin with 1 minute a day. Be conscious of your breath going in and out, and pay attention to the sensations that arise. Also, try Qigong to create balance in your life and help to relieve any stress. Also, a reminder to check out healthylifestylemeals.com, where you can find and create healthy and balanced meals for your whole family in less than 15 minutes. It's so simple to use. So check that out and start your 30-day trial today.